Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler here at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner. Brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, I want to say just this one thing to you as we get started. The information on today's program has been gathered from many different places, many different people, and if you hear yourself in our conversation today, I want you to realize it is never all about you. So sit back and enjoy what we're going to discuss today. Today, we're going to talk about having a leadership survival kit. Now, I came across this because, well, quite frankly, I was doing how to put together your very own survival kit for the outdoors. And I started to think about this. We as leaders seem to never really kind of take care of ourselves before we take care of other people. Now, that's a good thing, but there are times when you need to take care of yourself first. So let's look at a survival kit for leaders. Now, the first thing on this survival kit list was, believe it or not, small bandages. And I thought to myself, well, how does that appear to a leader? Well, it does, very quite frankly. You see, when things happen, we as leaders need to find a way to put a small bandage on it. We come to that situation and resolve problems. That's part of what we are. The other part is teaching other people how to use those bandages in the appropriate time and place. And that is a part of your survival kit. Now, the next thing that was on here, I got a big kick out of because, quite frankly, we use this a lot around here. It's duct tape. Now, in a survival situation, we found that duct tape can be used for many different things, whether to hold a broken bone in place and or hold a bandage, to actually putting together some kind of travois or stretcher. In a leadership situation, I want you to think about your duct tape. How many times have you been in a place where you've actually had to take and reach in your backpack, so to speak, and pull out that duct tape and hold it all together? Many times when crisis happens, the leaders are really looked to bring it together in a way that makes others feel confident that they can carry it through. And I've always called that putting a duct tape on it and wrapping it all up together. I was surprised when I read this on the second thing on the survival list was duct tape. Now, leaders, think about how that goes into your backpack of survival. Now, the third thing is really important. The third thing on the survival list that we put together says fire starter. Now, as leaders, I have to tell you that if we don't start the fire within ourselves, it can never start outside of us. And that's going to be a place where you're going to want to always make sure that the fire is burning. So if you've kind of lost the spark, you need to find a way to ignite. Now, carrying in your backpack some way to do that is always a good thing. But as a leader, knowing when and where to start that fire in your people, in your organization, in those around you, is what it really takes to be a great leader. So, fire starter. The next thing, it was funny. It said you had to have fire starter, but you had to have some matches. So I think that those two things kind of go together. Now, this next one is really important, though. It calls for a map, a compass, a GPS, something to make sure that you can mark your way. Well, as leaders, so many times we get wrapped up into the day-to-day and we forget to look at our vision. That's really where we have made the mark on the map of where we want to go and end up. And here's the thing. If you don't pull that map out all the time, keep track of where you're going, that's the metrics. Keep track of how we're doing it and what's going on, what's working, what's not, doing the evaluations. Then you know what? You're just going to be lost in the woods. Now, as leaders, This really stems to us because those who are working with us and around us look towards us to plot the way. Now, that doesn't mean just say it. And this is where that vision thing starts to really take hold. You see, if you're just got a vision and you wrote it down in your letterhead and you put it up on the wall, but you've never ever explained it or talk about it ever again, it gets lost in the woods. And it has to be revised and reinvigorized all the time. You can't just say it once. You've got to say it over and over. And I'm going to encourage you to use it daily somewhere within your organization that you're speaking to. But it's got to be more than just at the bottom of your letterhead or the top of your letterhead, and expect people to take that in and understand what it is. So having that map and compass, setting the GPS course, that is having a vision, a mission, and a strategy. So leaders, you can understand why I put this high on my list. Now, this next one, we kind of laughed about here because, well, quite frankly, we have it in all of our safety kits here. It's a safety pin. Now, the safety pin is used for, gosh, you just can imagine how many different things. Holding a sling together, holding your bandage together, just holding it together. Think about a safety pin as holding it together. How many times have you walked in a situation as the leader and there's discussion of discourse and there's some heated discussion and you need to put a pin in it and hold it together? That's why I really like this piece of having a safety pin. Just the words come out very clearly. I've walked into a heated discussion amongst people and said, we're going to stick a pin in this. We're going to put a safety pin around it. And they understood exactly what that meant. You see, the word safety pin, I think, carries a lot of weight as leadership in order to have a speaking opportunity. Now, this next one, they said, you need to have sunscreen. Well, as a leader, you know what? Sometimes we need to have our skin just a little bit protected. There are times, even though the most thick-skinned leader I've ever met has had times when they've been vulnerable, and that's okay. But you need to make sure you're protecting yourself at all times. You see, leadership sometimes becomes a lonely situation. It seems like there's always someone shooting for you. Now, if that's true, I'm going to encourage you to think about it in a different way. Reach out and build more leaders around you. Bring them into the inner circle. Bring them into the coaching and mentoring piece. Then you won't need so much sunscreen. But I'll tell you what, it's a good thing to have in your backpack. Pocket tool. I love how they put this here. It needs to have pliers and wire cutter, screwdriver, and tweezers. and I got a big kick out of that because I carry a pocket tool all the time. And you know, I can't say the name of it because, you know, it's name brand. But the thing is, in it has so many different opportunities. It's like my multi-tool that I can go into any situation. And as leaders, we need to oftentimes have that in our pocket. Be able to reach in and pull it out. And if we need the tweezers to pull out a thorn or a splinter that's in someone's either mind or hand, we need to be able to do that. How many times I've used this thing to just tighten something up? How many times have I used the screwdriver to put something back in? You see, this multi-tool as leaders, wants you to think about each tool that's on that multi-tool and how it refers back to your leadership. Even that sharp knife that's in there, sometimes we need to cut away the dead wood. It just happens. And leaders, this is going to be something you're going to use all the time. It's going to be more than just in your survival kit. It's going to be a day-to-day opportunity that you're going to pull out and use, I'm telling you, almost every single day. Now, the next one is water purification. The thing about that is, as leaders, we need to stay hydrated, no doubt about it, because we can't do our job if we're not. But there's more to it than just staying hydrated. You see, water purification, I sometimes go back to and think about purifying the people that we're working with and around us. That means no gossip. That means no backbiting. That means looking at every decision through the mission and vision. You see, when we start doing that, now we start purifying our thought process. We start all working on the same page and we all start looking towards that vision. It's our strategy, though, our day-to-day work habits that let us live our mission to achieve our vision. But again, it needs to be purified and everyone working on the same page. Now, I have to really enjoy this last one because I at a time used to make these for people, and that was whistle. As a leader, I have to tell you that when I was working with linemen, that whistle worked pretty good just to get attention. But it's more than that. Sometimes we need to just whistle and stop and think. When we get our team to actually stop and think and move ahead, that's a super thing to do. But there are times when our team is going to be so imaginative and so involved in the creative process that you'll see some actual tempers flare and some eyebrows raise, and you need to bring it all back into the same situation. And so having a survival kit available to you as the leader is a strong way to not just take care of yourself, but it's a strong way to show the people around you, the new leaders you're bringing up, exactly what it means to be a leader, but take care of yourself at the same time. So when I read this thing about a survival kit that we need to put together for group we're taking out in the woods, I believe that it's just every bit important to put it together for those of us here in the office. You see, everything we do is always watched. We as leaders are watched all the time, and every one of you are leaders out there. Now, some of us have titles, whoop-de-doo, and some of us have letters behind our name, whoop-de-doo, and some of us have letters in front of our name, whoop-de-doo. It's not the letters, it's not the titles, it's not those things. You see, some of the best leaders I've ever known and experienced were people who didn't have any of those things. But what they had was this toolkit, this survival kit, and they carried it with them all the time. It was always readily available. So when they had a problem, the situation, it was only small, and they only needed a small Band-Aid, they could take it out of their backpack and take care of it. And those small things are normally just little inconveniences. But when they grow large, then you're going to need that duct tape. I have been, sometimes wanted to take and put it across some people's mouths, but I've never done that. The thing about duct tape is it's one of the most useful tools in your toolkit. You can put together papers, you can put together people, and that's really where it starts to boil down to. The difference is knowing when and where to use it. Now, you can't know that unless you've built relationships with everyone within your team and within your organization. This is a highly contestable thing when I talk to other leaders about it. The average leader tells me, I just don't have time to go out and mingle with everyone in the organization. And I often say, you don't have time not to. You see, if they don't understand what the vision and mission is, they don't know where the company or organization is going. And who is it better to have them hear that from? You see, they might have been in a large auditorium and heard from it one time when your leadership dreamed it up. But if they've only heard it one time, I tell you what, if you've called them in a large auditorium, I will bet you my last dollar that when they walk out that door, only 1 out of 100 can tell you what you just said, even if you've explained it. You see, it takes 7 to 10 times for people to really sink in and start grasping this opportunity. And when we talk and think about it, we don't often put that into our world. So small bandages, okay? Duct tape, fire starter. You know, in our world, we collect lint from the dryer. We collect candles, ends. We collect all sorts of things, light or not. There's all sorts of opportunities to start fires in the wild. But those things you need a fire starter in your business, your organization. The biggest one is enthusiasm. You see, people realize very quickly that if you're the leader and you don't have enthusiasm, you don't have a passion, it doesn't come out in your speech or your walk or your talk. They know very quickly that you're just not passionate about it. You have no enthusiasm for it. I used to love to go to a once a year opportunity for a scouting opportunity. It was called Thousum. And the reason it was called that is leaders got together and got re-enthused about what they were doing. That was working with young people tomorrow. Now, in organizations, sometimes I've seen that leaders get so into the day-to-day they kind of lose their enthusiasm. It almost becomes a job, something you go to because it's just over broke. Remember, the fire starter is within you. But if it's not starting within you, I guarantee it will be hard to get the fire started out on the floor with the rest of the people. Having that little piece of things to get it started, they suggest you bring matches, flint and steel. Now, if you ever use flint and steel, that's a perfect explanation of working the enthusiasm with your people. You see, it takes two things: a rock, that's flint, and steel, striker. But it takes one more thing in there. Those two will make the spark. But without the fire starter, without the lint, without something to catch that spark, it just goes off into the world. That's why these two become so important in a leadership's backpack of survival. Not only do you have to have the enthusiasm and the passion, but you have to have a way to spark it in other people. That's why I thought this was so important. Again, map and compass, GPS. I love it. They even have altimeter on here so you know how high you're going. For me, how high we're going is our metrics, way we keep track of our metrics and what we're doing. But I'll tell you what, if you don't have a map on the wall, you don't have a map in front of your people with an X marked on it of where you're going, and something on the side of that map that says why you're doing it, and then a daily opportunity to move forward in there, then you're just stagnant. You're not going anywhere. You're doing what we've always done. And how's that working for you? It's a pretty exciting time in today's world because we do have GPS, the global positioning thing. Now, it's great. You can turn it on and figure out where you're at. You can get your coordinates. You can figure out how you're doing it. But I'll tell you what, if you're not keeping your metrics of how far you're going every day or what you're doing to get there or what kind of supplies do I need, you're probably not going to go very far. But if you don't have the map, if you don't have something marked on the map, what are you shooting for? And that's the ticket right there. Leaders, we have to always be out front. And leaders, we make the path for others to follow. Now, if they don't see that you have a mark on the map, they don't see that you know where you're going, why would they follow you? And again, if you don't know those things, well, you're probably just sitting watching the fire burn. That means your company, your organization may be just burning it down. People walking away, not joining, not getting involved. Make sure that you have a map and compass on you all times. It's funny, I was giving a lecture the other day, and somebody asked me, well, do you have one? Well, I pull out of my pocket my old compass that I carried when I was a Boy Scout. It's pretty ratty, but it still works. And I keep it to make sure that I know what my true north is, what my organization's true north is, where we're shooting for, where's that mark on the map, and how are we going to get there? We've oftentimes had to change the route, but we always know where we're going to end up. Have that map and compass. Stick a safety pin in your lapel once in a while. Walk around and let people know that you're there to help safety pin things back together. If you walk in an uncomfortable situation and you know something needs done, stick a pin in it. It's funny, now that sometimes I go places and all I have to do is drop that safety pin on the table, and people know exactly what it means. Okay, let's bring it all back together. Let's take a breath. Let's take a moment and see where we're all at. You know, the process of being excited about inventing something new, the invention process, that whole piece where we're being creative. I tell you what, I've worked with creatives for many years, and when creatives get really, really passionate about their stance, it's fun. But there are times when you need to stick a pin in it, bring them all back together, and then work for the end. What's the end outcome we're looking for? That's what stick a pin in it. Sunscreen, take care of yourself first. If you're going to be out on the canoe all day, I'll tell you what, it's a good thing to take and rub something on that bald spot I got back here. It's not a smart, very smart thing. Even when I have a hat on, by the way. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But in my office, the sunscreen is normally how people enter my office. Over top of my office, it says accountability starts here. And there's a arrow that points to my desk where I sit. Each and every one of us has to be accountable for the things we do and be responsible for our actions. That's why when we talk about sunscreen, it's not just to cover up or cover over. It's actually to take and slow down that process of sunstroke and tan and all those other different parts of the sun who can actually burn a hole in you. Make sure you have it. Again, my pocket tool. I was funny. It was in my pocket, and I was got it out when I was talking to you about it, and I started looking at it, and I thought to myself, how great is this thing as a leader? I could pull this out, and yes, in necessary times there is a sharp knife to cut away some dead wood. There's a fingernail file for when I am doing papers and I get something hung up. There's a bottle opener, by golly, and a can opener. How good is that? And you know what? There's just all sorts of things. And the needle nose pliers and the tweezers. Whoa, the tweezers are all worthwhile right there. How many times I've been in a situation in the office or with another group and actually had to pull a splinter. Something was happening within the group, and that splinter had started to fester in a person. And this could have been a discussion that happened before. It could have been an opportunity that went wrong. It could have been any of those things. But as a leader, you have to know when to pull it and when to put the small bandage on it. That's the whole thing. That's why this becomes so important, this whole survival kit. I got so excited about it because I started looking at this pocket tool and thinking to myself, well, I carry it every day and I use it almost every day. So as a leader, how do those tools represent the things I do? Well, the water purification, again, it was more than just the water. We need to always make sure that we're purifying our people that we're working with, our team, our organization. Are we all working on the same path? Are we all shooting for the same goal? Do we all know what the vision is? Do we all know the mission of why we're doing what we're doing? And are we all working on that strategic plan of day-to-day opportunities? You see, that piece really starts to bring home and really lock in our opportunities within the organization. But I'm going to take it even further than that. It'll start locking in the opportunities outside the organization, in your home, in your community, in your state, in your country. And you need to look at that, how it really affects the whole piece. And of course, I'm going to go out and make some of these this afternoon. Whistles. Now we make them out of just old sticks and twigs, and we drill the holes in and put the plugs in and cut the top notch. But when you think about that as a leader, sometimes we have to do the exact same thing in our people. We have to actually drill a hole. Take away some of the things that's inside them, and then we replace it with that plug. Now that plug has a place on top that's been whittled away to let the air go through as you blow it and make the noise out of the notch you've cut in the top. But that's where leadership really needs to step up. That's the coaching and mentoring process. And as you make a whistle, you have to test it. And if it's not tested, how do you know it's going to work? So that's the piece that in coaching and mentoring as leaders really starts to take hold. One of the things that I talk about many times in leadership when I'm on stage is I talk about this thing of mentorship and leadership and coaching and leadership. You see, leadership through the coaching process means that it's going to be interactive with the people around you. The mentoring process means that you're going to be able to come alongside them, and because maybe you've already been there, got the t-shirt and know what's going on, but you can help them go quicker, faster, better by providing them some of that information. Now the coaching process is a little different. That's going to be asking them questions and making sure that they hear themselves as they guide themselves through that process. Again, a good coach or a great coach is going to be a better listener than they are going to be a teller. Because if you just want to be a teller, well, that's a consultant. And that's not what this needs. You see, to build better leaders, you need to be that coach. One who asks questions so they can answer them themselves. 2, to mentor so that they have someone to go to and bounce ideas off of. Try different things. Take a risk of new opportunities. You see, that's the part that grows people. So leaders, having a survival kit in your backpack with you every day. I hope you can see how important that is. So remember, if nothing else, that you're going to have some small bandages. You're going to have some duct tape. You're going to have a fire starter and matches or flint and steel. You're going to have a compass, a map, GPS to make sure that you're on the right track. You're going to have that safety pin to stick a pin in it. Sunscreen, take care of yourself. Pocket tool, many different things you can take and do. Pull them out, take a look at it. Water purification is going to be more than that. It's going to be purifying your work habits, your work areas, and all the different parts and pieces of working with people. And of course, your whistle, you're always going to have that to either blow to take and stop them, get them to think, or blow to take and tell them, hey, it's time to get going. I see my time's coming to a close today. On behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, I want to say thank you for being a part of today's program. Now, if you have any comments or suggestions, well, don't hesitate. Give me a call, 727-422-1833. 727-422-1833. Send me an email, dick@ewfw.org. dick@ewfw.org. You know what? Go to the website, spend some time, look around, and there's a place to send me a message there, www.ewfw.org. And when you're ready to have the Leadership Wrangler come and put on an opportunity for your group, all you have to do is give us a call, 727-422-1833. Here at Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development, we truly believe that developing oneself will develop your organization and your company. Now, I want to leave you with just one thought. Make sure the Leadership Wrangler knows to ride hard, ride fast.